Last year, I made a video about the history of trains at one of Tokyo's two main airports, Narita. We explored the half-abandoned old airport station, and we talked about how the area's tumultuous history created Japan's shortest railway. Today, I want to talk about Tokyo's other main airport, and instead of history, we'll focus on the future. I'm talking about Haneda Airport, of course. Haneda is located within the Tokyo city limits, on reclaimed land in Tokyo Bay. When I was growing up in Tokyo, this was generally where you'd catch a domestic flight, whereas Narita was where you'd go for an international flight. But in 2010, an international terminal opened at Haneda, increasing the number of international flights. Today, the airport sees over 80 million passengers a year, making it one of the busiest in the world. But enough about planes, back to trains. I like to say that when it comes to transportation, a good airport has at least one train line serving it. A better airport has more than one. And people ask me sometimes why I don't consider Chicago to have the best airport transit. Well, both O'Hare and Midway are only served by one line each. Both are at the end of their respective lines, meaning you can only go in one direction, and both require a decent walk to get to the terminal. Compare that to National Airport near Washington, D.C., served by two lines and in the middle of both, so you can go in multiple different directions. And the station is next to the terminal. Compare that to Schiphol Airport near Amsterdam, right underneath the terminal, with a train to Amsterdam Central every 7 minutes, frequent intercity and high-speed trains traveling all across the country and to Belgium and France. So, how does Haneda compare? Well, right now it is served by two railway lines. It will be served by more in the future, but to discuss that, we have to understand the current situation first. It's hard to say which of Japan's many monorails is the most iconic. You've got so many dangly ones, one with mouse-shaped windows. The Tokyo Monorail is up there though. It's the Tokyo Monorail. The Tokyo Monorail is an 18-kilometer or 11-mile line from Haneda Airport to Hamamatsucho Station. It opened in 1964, a year that was very important in Tokyo history. It was less than 2 decades after the city had been devastated by World War II, but now they had an opportunity to host the Summer Olympics, and with it came guests from around the world. That same year, the first Shinkansen opened from Tokyo to Osaka, and so did the monorail. The Tokyo Monorail was built over the bay in several sections to avoid having to buy land. Initially, it only had 2 stations, Hamamatsucho and the original airport station. Every other station is either infill or part of an extension as the airport expanded. The other line to serve Haneda Airport is operated by the Keikyu Railway, one of Japan's many private railway companies. The Keikyu Main Line connects Tokyo with Yokohama and cities beyond, like Yokosuka. Keikyu Railway is popular among rail fans for their bright red trains and high speeds. The airport line is a short branch, 6.5 kilometers or 4 miles off the main line. Nevertheless, it's very important because it takes trains towards Tokyo and towards Yokohama. But the Keikyu Line has one extra advantage. North of its terminus at Shinagawa, the tracks connect to the Asakusa subway line. This allows trains to directly run onto the subway and serve some of the most densely populated and economically important neighborhoods on the east side of Tokyo. On the opposite end of the Asakusa line, trains can continue even further onto the Keisei Railway, which runs to Narita Airport. So you can have a one-seat ride from Haneda to Narita. Looking at this, it seems that Haneda's train situation is pretty good. 2 lines is much more than many airports around the world have. So then why are they building 2 more lines to serve the airport? Well, let's look at a map. Currently, stations along these lines have a one-seat ride to Haneda. Any stations along these lines can get you there with one transfer. But notice that most of these are still concentrated on the east side of the region. For many people on the west or north sides of Tokyo, taking the train to Haneda involves at least 2 transfers, making it less convenient. The following 2 projects aim to change this. First, The JR Haneda Access Line. JR East Japan is the largest passenger railway in the world. They run the Shinkansen north of Tokyo, as well as a sprawling network of commuter trains, including the Yamanote Line, which runs loops around downtown. JR East runs to Narita Airport, but notably not to Haneda. Yet. Currently, there is a little-used freight line running from Tamachi to the Tokyo Freight Terminal. This line will be repurposed and connected to a new tunnel that is being dug to reach the airport. When it opens, hopefully in 2031, JR Ueno Tokyo Line trains can access this new line. The Ueno Tokyo Line is an interesting connection in its own right, perhaps deserving of its own video someday. It opened in 2015, connecting several commuter train lines that had previously been separated by just a short gap between Tokyo and Ueno stations. Once the Haneda Access Line opens, large 15-car trains from across the northern and northeastern suburbs can directly serve the airport, stopping at some of Tokyo's most important stations along the way. But that's not all. The Haneda Access Line will also connect to the Rinkai Line, Tokyo's little bonus subway, if you will. The Rinkai Line crosses the bay underground, having been converted from another abandoned freight line. It opened in stages in the 90s and early 2000s. The Rinkai Line connects to JR lines on both ends, which will allow direct trains from the waterfront area and from the western suburbs to reach the airport. These trains will stop at some of the major terminals on the western side of downtown, like Shibuya, Shinjuku, and Ikebukuro. Travel time from these stations will be reduced to just half of what they currently are. The Kamakama Line is another train connection under construction, and it's surprisingly short. Nevertheless, it's quite complicated. The Keikyu Airport Line branches off from the main line at Keikyu Kamata Station. Just 800 meters to the west is Kamata Station. Among the different lines serving Kamata is the Tokyu Tamagawa Line, operated by company Tokyu. The Tamagawa Line is perhaps one of the less important lines in the city. It uses small 3-car trains, and it exists more so to connect local neighborhoods in this part of the city rather than to move large masses of people. But the Kamakama Line would move the final section of the Tamagawa Line underground and extend it from Kamata to Keikyu Kamata Station, hence the Kamakama name. This enables passengers from much of the western suburbs to get to Haneda with just one transfer. How? Well, at Tamagawa Station, on the other end of the line, a connection will be built to the Toyoko Line, which currently connects Shibuya and Yokohama and is a massively popular, important route. Many trains of the Toyoko Line don't just end at Shibuya, they connect onto the subway through downtown and then onto 2 other private railway companies, allowing trains to go far into the western suburbs. So by digging just a short tunnel, passengers will be able to take a 1-seat ride all the way from these areas to Keikyu Kamata, then take the escalators up from the underground station to the existing elevated platforms and transfer towards the airport. Now, this does present some challenges. The platforms on the Tamagawa Line are only 54 meters or 180 feet long, often wedged between railroad crossings. Toyoko Line trains, which would end up using this line, are 200 meters long or 650 feet. It seems unlikely to me that they would extend the platforms of all these stations, so I'd assume that these through trains would just run as express trains, straight to Kamata. The first section is scheduled to open sometime in the late 2030s, early 2040s. But what if we could make it even easier to get to the airport? This is what officials are thinking as they consider alternatives for the second phase of this project, which will see the tunnel link up with the Keikyu Airport Line. Ideally, trains from the Tokyo Line would run all the way through to the airport. But there is one major roadblock: track gauge. A railway's gauge is the distance between the 2 rails. The Keikyu Line uses standard gauge, which, while common in Europe and North America, is somewhat unusual for Japan. Instead, most commuter lines in Japan use the narrower Cape gauge, including the Tokyu lines. Simply put, the existing Keikyu tracks are too wide for Tokyu trains to run on. So there are 3 potential solutions. The first is to build a 3rd track so that trains of both gauges can use the line. This has been done successfully before, for example in the Seikan Tunnel, where standard gauge high-speed trains share tracks with narrow gauge freight trains, but it would be a very disruptive undertaking to install. The second option is to introduce gauge-changing trains, which would change the distance between wheels as it is running from one network to the other. While these successfully run in other countries, they haven't been as successful in Japan. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I find it a very unlikely scenario. It would be a very expensive custom train to build for what is essentially the last few kilometers of a long journey. The final option is to end the new line at Otori Station and facilitate a cross-platform transfer between Tokyo and Keikyu. This would be the simplest solution, though it might mean that more people have to cram into already crowded Keikyu trains for the last little bit to the airport. But once both lines are completed, as this map shows, it's going to be a lot easier to take the train from across the region to the airport. And that's all for today. Today we learned that Haneda Airport in Tokyo already has 2 rail lines serving it, but in the next few decades, 2 more will be built. Haneda is an increasingly important airport as Japan continues to receive millions of visitors a year, and once these new lines open, the airport will become a major railway hub. Journey times from across the region will be slashed, and the number of stations that will offer a one-seat train ride to Haneda Airport is about to grow exponentially. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to Trains Are Awesome. We have more content coming from around the world, and you won't want to miss any of it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.